I'm going to go over a tool called NotebookLM, and this tool is particularly effective for looking at research or covering a specialized area. So the first thing you need to do is add sources. And so my recommendation is that you would do a deep dive into your library database to find high quality peer reviewed sources that you feel comfortable with, and then you can add them up them one at a time. You can add up to 50 resources with the free version and 300 with the paid version, I believe. This is as of January 2026. The other thing you can do is you can actually search for sources, particularly if you're just starting out and you're not quite sure what you want to do. So what I would do here, and this you can type in here, or when you first open up a new search, it's a slightly different screen, but you type in what you would like. You might say, I would like high quality, peer reviewed sources on the use of Gen AI by teachers in K to 12 classrooms. I am interested in the benefits and the challenges for these teachers. So you specify that you want high quality resources, peer reviewed resources, or perhaps reputable white papers. So you don't just get anything. And Gen AI will search for those sources. You could also try the deep research um, option here to find sources. So once you've found your sources, NotebookLM will create a little summary. And you here can then, down in this area, ask questions. So, what are the benefits or what are the promises of using Gen AI in education? And what are the challenges of Gen AI? And what are the gaps? What's missing? What don't we know about this? And why is this important? And so you can ask all these questions and have a dialogue with the research. Be sure to save your notes so that you have this information and this interaction um, for a later time period. By the way, you do need to have an account with an email address so that you can save all your work. The next thing that I would do is use the mind map. It's really helpful to give you a big picture. So let me show you what it produces. We have this, so it talks about Gen AI in education, and then it can talk about the fundamentals here, the definition, technologies. It can talk about the applications, and you can go deeper and deeper into this. You can see, wow, okay, there's a lot of applications here. And so it gives you a really nice big picture overview of what is happening with all this research. That's, I think, a very, very important tool to start out with. And that's what I would start out with if I was just investigating or starting to learn about a specific topic. The next thing I would do is actually create a report. And so you can do that when you click on reports. You can choose a number of reports. You can do a briefing document, which I really recommend to start out with. You can create your own to focus specifically on issues that you want to focus on. And there are a number of other things that you can do, but I think the briefing document is probably your best option. So let me show you what that would look like. So here it is here. It gives you an executive summary, and it talks about key opportunities, and it lists them, and then significant challenges. So this gives you just a big picture overview, a little bit more in depth than the mind map, but it allows you to start to dig in and understand the area. The other thing you can do is actually create a podcast. Let me show you with the audio overview. So you can do a deep dive And it's a really good way to get into the actual articles because you have two people talking. It's very convincing. The other thing you can do is you actually can interrupt the artificial intelligence hosts and ask them questions, which I think is really, really cool. Now, if you don't want to create a deep dive, you can do a brief document. And as an aside, if you want something that you want critiqued that you've created, so for a different purpose, this is kind of interesting and create an expert review of your report. You could also have a debate if you wanted to. So any of these would be interesting ways to actually start to understand the topic area that you would like. You can also do a video overview, which I find is pretty helpful because it combines video with audio. And so you can do a more in-depth version of a presentation, or you can do a brief one. I would probably recommend that you do the more detailed one when you're first starting out to really understand the nuances of the area that you're interested in. Now, this wouldn't be used for research, but you can see you can create flashcards and quizzes, which those are just additional features. You could create a data table, and I've tried that. So it kind of creates summaries of articles, but I find they're quite brief. So that try it out, but I'm not sure that it will be as effective as you might think, because I think it summarizes articles and really uh, into too short of detail, so you don't really get the nuances of the article. Now, finally, if you want to actually present your information, you can create nice infographics or slide presentations. So if I click infographic and then here is the actual infographic, which is a nice sort of summary of this that might be something that you would find useful. When you create your infographic, you can actually make it more concise. For example, you can ask for fewer words, you can change the color, you can ask it uh, to emphasize key areas. So if you wanted to present something, you knew what you wanted to present, this would be a nice way to do it. The other thing you can do is create a slide deck. Now you can't edit that slide deck, but it does a pretty good job. Let's take a look. So you have this area and talks about the history, and then talks about the promises, and then it goes into each of those areas of promise, and then the perils. It's quite in depth here, and it goes into those into more detail. So that's a way of presenting information as well. So that's NotebookLM in a nutshell. I think it's a great tool for really delving into research. The one thing you can do, and I didn't mention, is that you can actually look at a specific article. So you can uncheck everything but the one article, and you can start to ask specific things about that article and get into more depth and understanding. So that's a good way to really start to dig into something when you have a little bit more knowledge. Okay, that's Notebook LM.